As I'm sure many of you were probably humming a Gordon Lightfoot song in your hand or in your head, and I know the good Lord wouldn't mind. Gordon, of course, had passed away and was buried this week. Many of us know his songs over the years. We don't realize really how famous he truly was. When you see interviews and other songwriters, it wasn't just about his lyrics. He was quite well known as a storyteller that wrote many operas. And it wasn't just the intelligence of his lyrics, which is something that's lacking in today's music. I think we can all agree, where they just go to vulgarity or made up words to make a rhyme. He had a wonderful vocabulary. But in the music world, he was better known for his composing and the genius behind his composing as well as his music. But when you hear people like Bob Dylan say he was the greatest songwriter of all time, Bob Dylan said he was the greatest songwriter of all time. Billy Joel once quoted saying when he wrote Uptown Girl, he was trying to write a song good enough that Gordon Lightfoot would consider singing it. So when that's the way your peers talk about you, you realize what a hero he was. But what made him special, really special to us, is he never forgot where he came from. He knew he was from Orillia. He loved Orillia, Simcoe County as well. He came home many times to play at the Opera House, the Mariposa Festival, Casino Rama. In fact, I think he was scheduled at Casino Rama again this summer at 84 years old. So he truly will be missed by us locals. And, you know, you hear a medley of songs that you even forgot that were Gordon Lightfoot songs. We've taken them for granted for so long. So he certainly will be missed. So with that, I'll ask for the roll call, please.
Your Worship, all members are present, with the exception of Councillor Bell. In attendance is alternate Councillor David Snutch. Councillor Cabral in attendance is alternate Councillor Anita Moore. Councillor Norris, and in attendance is alternate Councillor LaChapelle. Okay, thank you. Does anybody have to leave early today? And I will remind us, we do have the bus taking us over to the airport after today for a lunch and a social and a bit of a tour of the airport. So with that, I'll look for the approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cox that the agenda for the May 9th, 2023 meeting of Council be approved.
Everybody's heard the motion. Any questions on the agenda? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? Not seeing any presentations and deputations. We have none. And the consent agenda of Councillor Burkett.
Thank you. Good morning, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Norcross, that the Council communications and proclamations April the 25th, 2023 to May 8th, 2023 having given due consideration be received.
Thank you. Any questions on the communications? All in favor? That is carried. I'd call upon Deputy Warden Coghlan for the council minutes.
Good morning, Your Worship. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Locke, that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted. The Committee of the Whole reports be confirmed. County Council minutes, April 25th, 2023. Committee of the Whole report, April 25th, 2023. Committee of the Whole confidential report, April 25th, 2023. Waste Management Workshop, Special Council minutes, April 25th, 2023. And Waste Management Workshop, Special Council confidential minutes, April 25th, 2023.
Okay, any questions on those minutes? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And Councillor Cox, we're on to the presentations of the Committee of the Whole. If you would like to do performance management, please.
Good morning, everyone. I have a resolution that the performance management recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated April 25th, 2023 be approved, including the confidential item. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Leduc. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried.
That is carried. Thank you. Thank you for taking the vote for me. And next, Councillor Leduc for Human Services. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Warden. We're at Section 9.2 of the Committee of the Whole Report, Human Services. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the Human Services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated April 25th be approved.
Everybody, any items to be pulled? All in favor of the motion? That is carried. And lastly, Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Measures that the corporate services recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report dated April 25th, 2023 be approved.
That was a pretty heavy agenda, I think, that one. So everybody's heard the motion. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And it's a light agenda today because of our tour. So presentations and considerations of special reports, we have none. County officers' reports, none. Which notice has been previously given? We have none. And I don't believe any notices of motion. So closed session, we have none. So we're on to the consideration of the bills. Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, of course, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Burkett, that bill number 7011-23 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
On that bill, all in favor? That is carried. So we're already on to announcements, and I'll go to Deputy Warden Coughlin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to take a quick minute to say thank you to everyone that came out and supported the Elmvale Maple Syrup Festival, and also wanted to add congratulations to our Councillor Norcross and McClellan for their huge win for New Tech. So congratulations to that. And we also have the female champion in the room, this Councillor Moore, and Alexander took first place, and I will note that I took the very last place. So
second place, I think it was.
It was last. last. But thank you very much to everyone for braving the rain and being with us.
Yes, I didn't see you there, Councillor Norcross. A couple of ringers maybe in your place there.
Your Worship, it's their own fault for not checking photo ID when the guy said Norcross, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So.
I will say, after which I ran a fever for a couple of days. The shock of losing, I just couldn't deal with it personally, but it was a fun day and did have a good time. Councillor Cox, I think you had an announcement.
Yeah, I would just like to welcome everyone to our Coldwater Lions Club duck race on May 27th. We have 5,000 ducks that will race down the river, and we have at least 40 prizes. Most of them are cash. And it's a wonderful day to come out, bring the family. The parade starts at 12:30, and the ducks are dumped in the river at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden. I'm pleased to announce last Friday the Collingwood Blues junior hockey team was successful in winning the Ontario Championship Buckland Cup, and they're off to the Centennial Cup for the Canadian Championships leaving tomorrow, and we wish them the best. They're in Le Portage, Manitoba, and they'll be competing with 9 other Canadian teams for the Canadian Championships. So we're wishing them luck, and I continue to go Siskins, go.
And Councillor Measures.
Yeah, well, thank you, Your Worship. Good morning. And speaking of championships, and congratulations to our neighbors, the Collingwood Blues. As I mentioned at our last meeting, the Stainer Siskins were competing for the North Division Championships of the Junior C Loop. And, of course, they're great representatives of Simcoe County. And they were successful in beating North Wellington. And so Andy Lennox, the mayor of North Wellington and the warden of Wellington County, forwarded me a photograph of he and his council holding the Clearview Township flag clearly inside their chambers, and I understand it's flying in front of Kenilworth today. So the Siskins are on to the All-Ontario Championships with 4 teams playing in a tournament in Woodstock, Ontario, and I will be dropping in on Saturday and Sunday, of course, to cheer on our Siskins. So thank you very much, Your Worship.
Good. Congratulations.
I have a second announcement, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to bring congratulations to the Clerk's Department and to the staff here at the county for acknowledging the coronation of King Charles III. As in our dais today, we have the Union Jack, known as the Royal Union Jack, flying in our chambers, and I think that's very appropriate. So thank you very much to the staff for making that happen.
All right, perfect. That rolls right into what I was going to say, that I'd like to congratulate His Majesty King Charles III and Queen Camilla as their coronation ceremony was held Saturday, May 6th. And His Majesty was crowned alongside the Queen, and we will send them good wishes as they begin a new chapter in the Commonwealth's history. And reminders again that we have some workshops coming up. May 23rd, there's a planning workshop and a special council meeting. June 13th, there's a strategic planning session, part 1. June 27th, there's a strategic session, part 2. And for those members attending Lake Simcoe Regional Airport this afternoon, stay tuned for details when we adjourn here. And I believe there's a bus taking us over if you desire. So now I'll look for the if there's no other announcements, confirmatory bylaw, Councillor Norcross.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor McClellan, that Bill number 7012-23 be enacted as a bylaw of the County of Simcoe.
Everybody's heard the bylaw. All in favor? That is carried. So now adjournment. Can I have a mover to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Locke, second by Councillor McKellen. All in favor? That is carried, that we adjourn at 9:12. All right, I will go out and give our city reps a chance to come in.
All rise.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll look for a quick roll call from my clerk. Thank you, Doug. I don't need a gavel, I got Doug.
Your Worship, in attendance today, in addition with our alternate councillors, we do have City of Orillia Councillor Fallis. Absent is Barrie Councillor Hamilton. Absent Orillia Mayor McIsaac. Absent Barrie Councillor Ngusi. Absent Barrie Mayor Nuttall. In attendance, Barrie Councillor Riepma.
Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Councillor Durnford.
Durnford is here. Okay. Okay, I'll look for an approval of the agenda. Councillor Dolan.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Warden Coughlin that the agenda for May the 9th, 2023 meeting of the Committee of the Whole be approved.
On that motion, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Is there a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council? I'm not seeing any. So with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Maura McPherson, President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Linda Rodenberg, Interim Principal, and Michael Dehan, Vice President, External Relations, to present their delegation to the Committee of the Whole to provide a friendly reminder. Yeah, 15 minutes they're telling me, but you folks are well aware of that. Okay.
Welcome officially. Welcome officially.
And I should have said this is for Lakehead University. I think I've already seen a preview of this, have I not, at Romero? Yes.
I think so, yes.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Warden Clark and Simcoe County Council. I'm Dr. Maura McPherson. I'm the President and Vice Chancellor of Lakehead University, and I'm so pleased to be here this morning with my colleagues, Linda Rodenberg and Mike Denhan, who I know are familiar faces to all of you. I really wish I could have joined Linda and Mike over the past few months as they visited each of your communities and provided an update to your councils, but I'm very honored to be here today in person to discuss with you the future of Simcoe County and our university and make a formal request to council for support of our expansion plans. And I also just want to very quickly acknowledge and say good morning to members of the Lakehead University community. We have supporters from our Board of Governors, from our student union, and faculty and staff. So thank you very much for joining today. Lakehead University's story really took root in Simcoe County in 2006. Since then, we have seen exponential growth in Orillia, starting with 101 students in our charter class and finishing our 2022 academic year with more than 2,100 students. 2009 was a pivotal time for us. That was the year that you, the County of Simcoe, committed to an investment of $10 million in the establishment of the University Avenue campus. In 2010, with your support, we were able to open Simcoe Hall, our flagship building. Today, this building is home to a thriving academic community at the heart of our campus. We've continued to grow alongside one another with the Lakehead Georgian Partnership beginning in 2016. And I have been so proud to be part of this series of successes. Since the beginning, we have been growing together and growing stronger because of our partnership. And our forward momentum, particularly right now, is incredible. For Lakehead, our momentum is grounded in our strategic plan, which is fundamental to everything that we do. You will see from the strategic pillars on this slide that the commitments to the growth of Lakehead's campus here in the county are integral to each of our strategic priorities. We are committed to this partnership in every aspect of our strategic and our academic missions. We have an understanding that what we may do here may be different than what we do in the north, but it still builds on and reflects our core values, our commitment to academic excellence, to social responsibility, partnerships and innovation, and economic development. As Linda and Mike have illustrated so well over the last few months, and we've been getting the minute-to-minute report through each of those presentations, Lakehead believes in and is committed to our students. When we first arrived here in Simcoe County back in 2006, the post-secondary degree attainment rates were significantly below the provincial average. We were the perfect partners to address this issue. Lakehead's story hinges on access for students. Over 94% of our students come to us needing support related to academics, financial need, health and wellness. We are able to meet those needs and create a thriving academic community in which our students feel empowered and successful. And that's why we do what we do here at Lakehead and why your investment matters so much. We have a commitment to providing an exceptional and accessible education to students within Simcoe County and beyond. And now look how far we've come. I was so excited to hear the stories of the students from your communities that were highlighted in each of our recent updates with your councils. Students like Jessica and Whitney and Andrew and so many others that you see here. These local students are some of the faces of Lakehead University. They wanted to stay here, live here, work here, and make a difference. And they're making a difference within their home communities. And they are not the only ones. We know that students in your communities want to come to Lakehead University. That's because 950 of them are already here as current students at Lakehead in Simcoe County. And that growth trend will continue, just as it continues within the county as a whole. We know we need to be ready with new programs and new spaces on our campus to support the growing needs of the region and to stimulate economic innovation and prosperity. I now will turn it over to Mike Danhan, who will tell you a bit more about how we plan to grow and how we can work together to build a vibrant future.
Thank you, Moira. Good morning, Warden Clark, members of council. I must say, Linda and I presented to many of you in the last several months, and this is a whole new level. It is wonderful to be here with all of you and present this wonderful presentation to you as well. As Moira described, there is now a very solid foundation for Lakehead University in Simcoe County, and our future is growth and service. Our buildings are now full, and the region is growing rapidly. University growth comes in many forms, as you know. Lakehead works hard to support students and their success. We also play a significant role in the economic development of our region. As we, both the county and the university, grows, Lakehead will play an even greater role as an economic driver, contributing to workforce development by providing education and training, programs that meet the region's needs, helping students develop their skills through work-integrated learning opportunities, and continuing to drive innovation through economic development and research. The annual economic impact of the Aurelia campus alone is $245.7 million, and that doesn't factor in Lakehead's $3.563 billion impact on Ontario's GDP as a whole. Through our partnerships and collaboration, we will continue to grow that economic impact in this region. And because graduates are more likely to stay in the region they earn their degree, we will also grow the local talent pool. More than 2,500 alumni are currently living and working here in Simcoe County. And many of our students, both those from here and away, including international students, hope to join our local workforce community. In order to continue to drive innovation, research, economic development opportunities in this region, Lakehead University needs to grow right here in Simcoe County. And we are now at an important moment in time for the growth of the university and the growth of the region. What you see on this slide is a wonderful view of the beautiful campus in Orillia, a campus with 3 buildings and room for so much more. These 3 buildings, including Simcoe Hall, are now full. We're now preparing to add new facilities that support the growth of students, programs, and our economic impact. And we're here today to ask for the county's support for the first of those new facilities. As you know, Linda and I, with the support of our colleagues, have presented to each of the township councils over the past several months. And over the past year, we've also engaged with businesses and partners about their needs and the needs of the region, and how Lakehead University can play a role supporting the growth and needs of the county. We've heard strong shared beliefs in the generative role of Lakehead University for this region, contributing to the ability of this region to thrive. This kind of growth takes a whole community, and that's why we're here today. As a community-engaged institution, we're ideally positioned to grow alongside the region, leveraging our collective expertise in skills development, research, workforce support, and economic development to address the unique needs and challenges that both of us will face in the next 5 to 10 years. In order to continue to support Simcoe County, a region that's growing at the rate of 15% annually, we're looking to the county to support and invest in our next chapter with a commitment of $15 million for campus expansion. The last 12 months of consultations with community groups have been incredibly helpful. We've learned about the unprecedented labor pressures in the region, as well as the unprecedented challenges facing many organizations and businesses. In parallel to these consultations, Lakehead struck an internal steering committee over a year ago to better understand the opportunities and challenges that Lakehead University faces at this campus. A group of deans, VPs, faculty members, and students have been working hard to understand where we've been growing, where our pressure points are, and what students, community, and program needs a new building could fulfill. At the beginning of 2022, Lakehead also engaged Urban Strategies Incorporated, an urban planning group, to conduct a study of our space pressures, help us assess them, help us to understand how growth and how to grow in an engaged way and in partnership with the region. The study looked at a number of things, including current capacity, as well as future site and infrastructure considerations. What came out of the study will come as no surprise to many of you in the room. We're at a maximum capacity and have no room for any growth within our current infrastructure. At the same time, the city of Orillia has migrated toward the campus, and we now have important neighbors all around us. Lakehead seems to have been a catalyst for Orillia to grow in a good way. So our specific location context has changed in important ways, and our growth strategy needs to honor that by growing in partnership with the community. So what would a $15 million investment mean? Well, with the help of Urban Strategies Incorporated, we've started to envision what our campus could look like in the future. This is a different vision from before because so many things have changed. You can see the heart of the campus, our current campus in red, with the academic building or Simcoe Hall, along with the residence and the cafeteria. You can also now see a vision for growth that respects Indigenous teachings with the circle. It's grounded in the current strengths of the university and supports the future needs of the region. It's a vision that responds to the growth trajectory of the region, the strengths of Lakehead as an access university, the job skills of the future that are needed, and the needs of the community for a university for all ages and for the entire community. In total, over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll need approximately 15,000 square meters of new space on the Aurelia campus at 500 University Avenue. This is the equivalent of about 3 regular-sized buildings. But we also envision that this unique campus will partner in highly innovative and creative ways with community groups, organizations, and industry. Ways that partner on programs, funding, and space. Ways that partner so the whole community benefits exponentially. The first new building will be key, and that is why we're asking Council to support. This new space will accommodate capacity for growth in programs, the student population, and economic impact. It would be one of the 3 numbered buildings that you see here, any one of those 3 buildings. You can see with this vision the attention to both immediate and long-term growth. Our aspirations are that we invite partners and the community to participate in this. It also ensures that the campus is accessible by the community, including immediate neighbors, and is designed in a way that honors the teachings of the Medicine Wheel with a powerful east-west view and greenway. As I mentioned, the top current priority is the much-needed construction of a new academic building at an estimated cost of $35 million. It would be one of the buildings you see numbered between 1 and 3 on this, as I mentioned before, and the timeline is within the next 5 years. Specific needs will be prioritized in the first building, including instructional spaces, teaching spaces, a space to honor Indigenous learning and gathering, a space for student programming, clubs, etc., and a centralized student services hub. Lakehead will also continue to engage with regional partners and community members to ensure that current and new programming needs are met within the parameters of this project. Lakehead will build on our strengths, address emergent needs to effectively use space in support of enrollment growth, new partnerships, the student experience, and community engagement. And the heart of this campus remains now and into the future, Simcoe Hall. It is and will remain the beating heart of the thriving campus ecosystem that will have a positive impact and benefits for the whole community. We'd be honored for the county to partner with Lakehead for this next journey within Simcoe County. I'll now turn it back over to Moira on the last slide.
Thank you, Mike. It has been my honor as president to help bring our Aurelia strategies, our priorities for Simcoe County to life over these past 5.5 years, and to develop the vision and the plan for the future. I'm delighted to be standing here this morning with Linda and Mike to ask for your support to take the next steps for growth on our Aurelia campus, but for growth in Simcoe County. Through your worship, Mike and Linda and myself would be happy to respond to any questions that you may have for our team. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any questions or comments? Yes, we'll start at the back. Councillor Miskman.
Thank you, through your worship. Dr. McPherson, looking at the future expansion plans, the one thing that I didn't see on there is an expansion of student housing, and we know that's always critical to the future of learning, is somebody having a place to live that's somewhat affordable, and I didn't see that included in there. Has that been considered as part of the expansion plans? Thank you.
Yes, and I'll let Linda just jump up here and give you a quick answer to that.
Thank you, through your worship, and thanks for the question. It's top of mind for me right now. We're in conversations, certainly with the City of Aurelia and with the county, about how to make sure we're meeting student housing needs that are current. We're very open to considering partnerships on campus in relation to building expansion of residences. That's a really new and emergent thing for universities in this province, but has been popular throughout the country to partner with a developer to build what our students need. But I'm also really interested in thinking outside the box because we are a community-engaged university. So right now I'm working on a pilot project that would be an intergenerational experience for students to maybe live with seniors in our community. But I'm also very interested in something bigger that is multi-generational on our campus as well. So I think what I'm hoping is that you'll see the philosophy that we have as a community-engaged campus expand into our housing initiatives as we move forward as well.
Okay, I've got Councillor Van Stavern and then Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship. As was mentioned earlier in your presentation, we've had the privilege of receiving the presentation. In our case, Dr. Rodenberg came to us a month or so ago, and I questioned at that time, or I asked at that time, I'm a strong advocate for agriculture in my case. And now, you mentioned about your programming going forward. At what point will your council or committee decide what direction the campus will take in terms of types of programming? We recognize the relationship with Lakehead from your northern parents will say, very strong in agriculture. We have a strong agricultural community here in Simcoe County, and in particular in Clearview Township. Can you speak to that a bit and what direction, what inclusions you'll be having in that regards? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. And I'll start the answer, but I'm going to turn it over to Linda again. So first of all, when we talk about expanding programming at Lakehead, that initiative, that work is already well underway. But as you can imagine, it takes time and it doesn't happen all at once. It's not like 2 years from now, we've got 10 plus new programs or pathways started. That work is systematic. It in some cases has to build organically from the faculty and the staff. In other ways, it needs to respond very directly to the community, to industry, to partners across the county. But it will continue to grow, and those programs and pathways and different types of credentials, you're going to see them starting to come on board, like we have already over this last year. But specific to agriculture and perhaps the agri-food industry, I'm going to turn it to Linda.
Thanks, Moira. I'm really excited to continue the conversation about agribusiness. I grew up myself in a rural community. My family is in agribusiness by and large. And I would say that we have some really incredible opportunities that are unique to our campus because we started out with a strong philosophy centered in interdisciplinary studies. And I think when I think about agriculture and agribusiness as we move forward in the county of Simcoe, I really think it's going to be an interdisciplinary phenomenon. And so what we have started already, in part in response to our conversation, is we have decided to move forward with strengthening that through entrepreneurship to begin. So we will be offering an entrepreneurship specialization this fall to students who then could, through that program, choose to focus their own work on agribusiness. But I think as we move forward, we certainly have heard this across the county, that this is an interest. And so right now that involves strengthening our connections with our strengths in Thunder Bay, with our researchers there, making sure that we develop those partnerships with stakeholders locally, and then starting to talk to our faculty and deans about how we can think specifically about agribusiness. The other thing that I think is really interesting is there's a new micro-credential environment emerging within the university and college system. And so that's another opportunity for us. In Thunder Bay, we are currently developing a micro-credential related to agritourism that I think we could definitely bring to Simcoe County and offer in a more local way. And that gives us a way to quickly start to meet some of those needs as we seek to develop more academic programming as well. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Norcross.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. First off, congratulations on your success. You've certainly been on a successful journey and proud to be a part of it. I love how you stress the fact that community partners are very, very important, very integral as you grow your university. Simcoe County, of course, is a community partner, and I'm sure the City of Orillia is a community partner, as the City of Barrie was a community partner. So my question is, you're asking Simcoe County for $15 million. How much will you be asking from the City of Orillia to contribute to this project in the City of Barrie, please?
Okay, thanks for that question. And Mike, this one's yours.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. We know this first building is likely going to cost $35 million. $15 million won't do it all. And so we will be talking with the cities of Orillia and Barrie, respectively, as well as other community partners. We're also speaking with our student group, LUSU, who has said they want to support this new building as well, and philanthropists in the region we hope will support this. So it's early days yet, and that's why this conversation is so important, because it really helps establish the momentum for all those other conversations that are still emerging at the moment. Thank you.
Supplementary, or are you good, Richard?
Sure. Thank you very much for the answer. So how much will you be asking the City of Barrie and the City of Orillia?
We don't have that right number.
Okay, will you be asking them?
Yeah, yes, we will. Thank you.
I have Councillor Dolan and then Continent.
Thank you very much for coming here today and for coming to each of the member municipalities of Simcoe County as well. As you may or may not know, South Simcoe is growing in leaps and bounds. The town of Bradford, West Gwillimbury, the town of New Tecumseh and Innisfil all have about 10,000 more population than the City of Orillia, and we have a real void in post-secondary education in our area. So I wondered if there's any thoughts of expansion into like a campus in South Simcoe somewhere. I can tell you that York University has been knocking at our door, so it would, and because Lakehead is Simcoe County's university, it would be nice to look at any opportunity for expansion into South Simcoe.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. We were absolutely anticipating a question or a comment like that. And really today, to be very clear, our focus is on the new building that is so necessary at the heart of the Lakehead University Simcoe County growth and expansion. To be able to continue to have the economic impact, to grow the partnerships, to spur on the innovation that is so vital to this region, it is critical now that we focus on the expansion on the campus. But I know that we are exploring all opportunities for the future. We're here for the long run, and we believe that Lakehead University is Simcoe County's university, and obviously that's going to mean looking at some different types of growth and expansion as we move forward through the next phase. Mike, did you want to add anything to that, or were you? Sure.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think we definitely heard from many different municipalities as we were out speaking to you that there's a real desire to have to have programming in your communities, and I think there are a couple of ways for us to do this. I think that we have a clear mandate to expand our community engagement opportunities. We're currently in your communities doing work in high schools. I think we need to be in your communities doing other community engaged work as well. But I also think that we were hearing about specific needs in relation to programming that I think we can start to talk about. And I think that in order for us to be able to have that conversation and grow in that way, we do need to be able to strengthen our main campus in Orillia in order to think about how we can move forward beyond that. And so if there's, I think I'm always very interested in bridges and pathways, and in a county that needs to highlight access to education, sometimes you need to meet people where they are, and we're prepared to do that work as well.
Councillor Compton.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the presenters. Just wanted to say thank you for including the Indigenous perspective on the future planning of the campus. And I know it's a pathway to reconciliation, but it's also a pathway for opportunities to consult with First Nations and utilizing the concepts of the teachings of the medicine wheel. And I just wanted to express or get feedback on terms of future partnerships with the Indigenous communities, not just in Simcoe County, but beyond, because we do have the Huron-Wendat nations that are part of this history of the area. We also have other aspects of the different cultures that came in through the area in terms of how the progression of the university will make its partnership with First Nations, and looking at the dish with one spoon in terms of a shared responsibility in the education field. So I just wanted to see if you had any comments regarding that relationship, partnership that's going to be built for the future.
Yeah, thank you, and I will ask Linda to make a couple of comments as well. But I thank you for acknowledging that commitment in the work we're doing. It is part of every single aspect of every foundational plan that we've developed over the last 6 years. Our commitment to Indigenous learners, but also our commitment to Indigenous partnerships, to Indigenous organizations. We currently, across both campuses, the whole university, we have nearly 120 plus active partnerships with Indigenous organizations or different types of leadership groups and First Nations. And we've been growing that work here, obviously with the Chippewas of Rama First Nation, but also working to reach out into different communities and First Nations. So Linda, you probably are best positioned to speak to some of the specific work.
Thanks, Maura, and through your worship. Thank you, Miigwech. I'm always honored to be in conversations about this sort of thing. Working with David Fortin, the Indigenous architect, on this work has been really, really meaningful for me. Certainly, the medicine wheel teachings are not mine to share, but it doesn't fall on deaf ears for me that we are so lucky to live in the land of Minjikaning, and it's the story there of the fish fence is really about people coming together from all over the place to learn from each other, and to be in a place that where that is one of the central guiding stories of our Indigenous population. It's just such a meaningful thing to me. I can't believe that we're in this area that has been thinking about those connections between people and learning together since time immemorial. It's a pretty special thing, I think.
Okay, I have Councillor Cox, followed by Councillor Leduc.
Yes, I would just like to thank you very much for coming and making the presentation. And I also want to thank you for the university. It has helped so many students I know be able to go and have the university training. Before, it was very costly. We've all had to send children to school, and they had to be far away from home. And this has enabled so many of our students in Simcoe County to be able to afford to go there and be able to move on to higher learning and get well-paying jobs. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Leduc.
Yes, thank you, Warden. And through you, I want to thank you for the presentation also. I think it's great, and I absolutely support the University of Lakehead being in Simcoe County. I think it's wonderful. 47% of their student body comes from our county, and that is a big number that we need to promote. That's our youth, and I think it's important that we sit there and promote our youth and make sure. It's like I said in the presentation, if they educate in this area, they'll locate in this area. That's the future of our businesses moving forward, and I think it's very important that we partner with Lakehead University. As much as we all love to see this campus in every one of our communities, I think that we can work with this Lakehead University to make sure that we get our students to that campus, whether it's in Orillia or wherever. But I think it's important that we certainly support this opportunity. I look forward to your growth plan. There is business partnerships out there that you can get the residential housing. There is opportunities for that, and I think there's some. This is just a great opportunity. I sit here and I say to you today, it's 5 years from now, and I assume it's potentially because of your new programs, the accreditation process, that to get that, do you have to do that, or is that something you can carry through your parent university at Thunder Bay. So I question the 5-year program. Is it because of accreditation or is it some other issue?
Is your question specific to the growth of programs in general? Yeah, well, every single program, I mean, just to take a step back, every single program that's delivered at a university, so if it's a degree granting program, it has to go through what's called quality assurance. It's a provincial body of assuring that the programs meet degree level outcomes, they have learner outcomes that meet certain standards, et cetera, et cetera. It's a rigorous program of quality assurance, and it's distinct from the college's program of quality assurance. Particular programs that are delivered by universities also have accreditations, and it's very specific to the particular program. All of you would be familiar, for example, with education, which of course has to be approved through the Ontario College of Teachers. But you know, every single program, particularly professional programs, have different standards and different bodies that work through the accreditations. We don't see that as a barrier to our growth, but as I'm sure everybody will realize, universities are not necessarily fast-moving machines, and the program approval process does take time. But what I would say in support of universities is the transformation is lasting, it's meaningful, and it creates that research and that innovation and that economic prosperity that our regions need and are headed for. So hopefully that answered your question.
It does. Thank you very much. And I just say that it's an opportunity for us to support this, and I think we should certainly take a serious look at this, because there is an opportunity to support our youth and make sure that we create that business environment where other businesses want to come back to Simcoe County and locate here, because we have a great youth that's going to help them sustain their business. So thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you.
And I've got Aurelia Councillor Follis.
Thanks so much, Warden. Just a couple of comments. I wanted to thank the presenters. And as the representatives from Aurelia, we, of course, are very supportive of the project. Lakehead and the incredible post-secondary institutions that we have in Aurelia really do represent hope and prospect, not only for our community, but for Simcoe County as a whole. And of course, we see it every day as councillors in Aurelia, the incredible economic spin-off, the incredible cultural spin-off. There's a lot of benefits that we as a community and as a county get from this institution. So we're very appreciative. And we did want to say as well, we look forward to seeing you at the Aurelia Council speaking to this issue. There were a couple of quick questions that I had. One was on student consultation around this project. What's already been done, what's kind of planned as you move forward on these builds. There was mention too about leveraging capital dollars for this. I was curious if, and I'm sure this has already come up, but curious kind of what the plan is around looking to the federal and provincial governments as well, and what possibilities there are there. And then the final question was, we were remarking there's a lot of parking lots that are identified, and we were curious how those get laid out. Is that all at once, or is that kind of a series? That's more of kind of a City of Aurelia question, but we thought we'd throw that out there as well. So those are the big questions from Aurelia, and thanks again for presenting. Really wonderful to hear the information.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've collected all those questions. I'll just start it off, and then I know Linda and Mike are both going to speak to some of these, but I'll just start off by saying, prior to being the president and vice chancellor, I was the provost of Lakehead University, and prior to that, I was the deputy provost. And during those years, I spent about 5-6 weeks every summer in Simcoe County. And towards the end of that time, particularly as I was in the role of provost, we had started the early consultation with students and staff and faculty as well about, hey, there's going to come a day when we are going to need to actively plan for growth and expansion. So I'll start the consultation answer off by saying even back 7-8 years ago, we were reaching out and starting to try to get a sense from the internal community of what growth and expansion would look like. But when we stepped into the active planning phase about 5 years ago, then there were very direct steps that were taken. And Linda, I think you're best placed to address that.
The consultation process has been, yes, quite extensive and exciting, actually, because sometimes students have really unique ideas that we can bring into how we approach things. And what emerged for me from the consultation with students is that they are really committed to the Aurelia campus being a unique campus environment. They didn't come into those consultation sessions and say, we want you to look like other universities. They were definitely committed to this being a community-centered place. And so they have identified needs that we hope to address through this building and also needs that we hope to address through future partnerships as well. That consultation process continues. We also work really actively and closely with our student union. They are invested in this process and hopefully investing in this project. And that's the plan. And there will be specific student-centered space within this particular building. What our students are telling us absolutely is that they need to see us expand, that they need to see us offering them more as a student experience on campus, and we're committed to doing that in part through this particular building. So I'll turn it to Mike to talk about some of the other issues.
Thank you, through the chair. There's a lot there. See if I can remember all the good questions. I'll also add, add to Linda's comments that we invited our Lakehead University Student Union to participate in our internal steering committee to work on these plans, work on our internal consultations, and they were very much a part of that and remain part of that today. So they're very much part of this, highly supportive, and also pushing the group to think outside of the box, just like Linda indicated. Regarding parking, parking and garbage are often the biggest issues in municipalities. So 2 of those spaces are already there. You can see on the bottom of the screen there where the parallel line below Simcoe Hall, the red parallel line, borders 2 of the parking lots already. So those are the existing parking lots. We know that as we expand, we will need more parking. We also know that as we expand in partnership with others and even think about interesting co-location of projects, that will require parking. So we've already established that that kind of border, that area in general will likely be the best place for parking. And we're thinking, those will expand as the needs arise, but they'll be set aside for that purpose. In terms of leveraging capital, if I understand the question correctly, there's a lot of good examples right now around the country that really started out in the West Coast where land values are so different than here, where they were leveraging the value of their land to partner with developers to build things. Biggest example are residences. So Trent University just did this with one of their new residences built by a developer, paid by a developer on leased land of the university. It suits a lot of needs. It's a real win-win for the community. And we'll be looking at those kinds of examples for this campus as well. It's kind of taking community engagement and partnership to a whole new level for the university, and I think that's our future as well. Hopefully we've addressed all your good questions.
Okay, Councillor Laux.
Thank you, through your chair. Thanks for the presentation. I know your focus here is on obviously buildings 1, 2, and 3. Going further past that, where is the next focus? I see 3 academic buildings and 3 mixed-use complex buildings. Would your focus be on more academic buildings or the mixed complex? And what avenue would you be taking? Like, who would you be looking for to partnership with these mixed-use buildings? Thank you.
Well, I think the building 1 that we're speaking about today, we've done enough of the consultation up to this stage to have a pretty clear sense of what we need in that building to allow us to expand to the 3,500 plus students. So that's absolutely clear to us, and we have a good sense of what that building program is going to start to look like. I think with building 2 and 3, we know that as we continue to grow past that, there will be additional perhaps research and innovation needs that are going to have to go into those next buildings. But I don't think we've got to the stage where we could definitively say that. I think, though, simultaneously, we're also looking and exploring other types of partnerships that will likely come into play with those buildings. And, you know, they're everything from partnerships with health institutions, could be partnerships with different types of community organizations, but it's probably a little early to give more details on that, but absolute growth and expansion. And I think the vision that we have is that idea of integrating with business, integrating with community to build this campus out, to be able to do the type of bridging and development in your own communities. Linda, second.
Okay. Aurelia, Councillor Durnford.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you for the presentation. And I really wanted to emphasize my support for this project and also appreciation for the partnerships that Lakehead already has in the Orillia area and how transformative those have been for the population, not just the students there, but I'm thinking specifically of the Third Age Learning series, which it has had a huge impact in the area with adult learners. And I wanted to tell a little story with regard to the agricultural piece. I had the opportunity to be out at Lakehead and talking with someone about a small pilot program that's going on. There were some students from a local elementary school that walked over. They learned about gardening, and then I happened to be at their elementary school to see the impact of that, which was their grade 7 and 8 students working furiously to create their own vegetable gardening area. And I just think that there are some wonderful potentials there for urban agriculture learning and partnerships with our elementary school system. And I'm just thrilled to see those partnerships kind of developing organically, as you mentioned. I did have a question about the residents, but I believe that was actually answered, that kind of public-private partnership idea. But I know, Linda, you mentioned perhaps some municipal partnerships there, and I look forward to learning more about that perhaps when you come to Orillia Council. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and I have to give full credit to Linda Rodenberg for her work with the TALL program. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, I'm seeing no further questions, so thank you, Dr. McPherson and Dr. Rodenberg and Michael Denhan. Thank you for that great presentation.
Thank you very much for having us here this morning. Thank you.
Okay, next I'd like to invite Jane St. Clair, General Manager, Health and Emergency Services, and Sarah Mills, Director and Chief of Paramedic Services, to deliver their presentation to the Committee of the Whole and give us an opportunity to pick their brain with a few questions.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, Council.
So whenever you're ready, Jane. Yeah.
Thanks very much. We're just getting the presentation set up. Okay, we're good to go. Good morning, everyone. I'm here joined by our, I can still say fairly new Director-in-Chief, Sarah Mills with Paramedic Services, to provide a presentation on our service. And if you may recall, We talked a little bit about some of the details of paramedic services during budget deliberations and made a commitment to come back with more details to inform and update our county council. So today we'll provide an overview of many aspects of paramedic services. This is just a summary of our presentation, so we will provide a summary. We'll talk about our many partnerships. We'll talk about paramedic classifications, community paramedicine specifically. We'll also talk about a number of additional programs operated by paramedic services, and then we'll delve into our deployment plan and our deployment program, how our resources are distributed. We'll talk about response time, the whole system management program, and then we'll end with just a little review of our financial perspective, the various funding programs and where we're at with that. So with that, we'll lead into the overview. We have approximately 429 paramedics within our service, primarily primary care and advanced care. And Sarah, Chief Mills will talk a little more detail about the individual roles. We also have a very specialized incident response unit that responds to certain types of calls, hazmat calls, tactical calls with our police partners. And we have a number of community programs. Again, Chief Mills will talk about community paramedicine. And I'll mention logistics. That is a very significant component to our service. We have approximately 85 different types of vehicles within our fleet. Our logistics team oversee, maintain hundreds of pieces of equipment for our paramedics and literally thousands of supplies, medical supplies for our paramedics. So it's a very significant part of our operation. And the other component that I'll just touch on is this leadership team in paramedic services is very, very focused in engaging our staff. And we've listed a number of different areas, everything from our special events team to our staff engagement. We have health and safety and equipment committee that we're really reaching out more and more and trying to involve our frontline staff. Looking at the regulations of paramedic services, the County of Simcoe has been appointed as a delivery service agent by the province. Back in the late 1990s, at that time, there were a number of local services across the entire province, and they transferred paramedic services to a regional level. And that's when the county took on paramedic services. I think there were 7 local services at the time. Originally, we contracted with a management company. Health Trust was the name of the company for a 3-year term. And at the end of that term, the county brought the service in-house as one of our own departments. The Ministry of Health is the primary provincial ministry that regulates paramedic services. And I say primarily because it's really evolved when we talk about community paramedicine. We do fall under the Ambulance Act. There have been some recent changes with the Ambulance Act. We may talk a little bit more about that, but have started to develop some new, what we call models of care, recent partnership with our hospice organizations, and now looking at developing, I think, our next priority around a model of care to support mental health in our community. And in terms of ongoing regulation and support, Sunnybrook Center for Pre-Hospital Care is our base hospital program. Dr. Michael Feldman is our base hospital physician, and they play a very, very significant role in the oversight of our service. So they not only provide that medical direction, they are also responsible for overseeing the medically delegated acts that our paramedic services provide, and they provide certification. So to be a paramedic is pretty complicated. There's a 2 or 3 year program that the individual must be successful in. And so for primary care, it's typically a 2-year program. For advanced care, it's typically a 3-year full-time program. At the end of that, they're required to not only successfully pass the program by the local college, then they must write an exam, a provincial exam, and then they go through another layer of certification through base hospital, which is led by a number of physicians, where they actually have to demonstrate their skills before they can work in any service in the province. The last piece, and not the least, but I will mention quality assurance because it's a really important part of this program as well. So again, we have multiple layers. All calls that are delivered by paramedic services go through a quality assurance program. So our team review all the documentation to make sure that it's completed, properly completed, and then certain types of calls are filtered through our own staff for quality assurance. And additional calls are filtered right through to Sunnybrook around delegated medical acts. So there's a very comprehensive component to our quality assurance as well. Next, I'll move on to partnerships. And these are probably the two most common that would come to mind. Dispatch. So that's the Central Ambulance Communications Center. We are governed by dispatch that's called George and Cack. And it's located in the city of Barrie. It oversees or provides dispatch services to County of Simcoe paramedics, to York Region, Beausoleil and Rama First Nations as well. And you'll hear us talk a little bit as we go forward just about the software program. So this is the algorithm that the dispatchers use when they receive a medical call. We're anxiously awaiting a new software program called MPDS. Please don't make me spell that one out. But it is a really tried, tested, and true software program. It's used internationally, and it's more detailed. It's more specific. So when a dispatcher receives a call, they can really delve in to understand, is this a life-threatening, an urgent call, or does it require a different level of service? So we're very excited about the implementation. It has been pushed out a little bit further. It has started in Peel region. And we're, we believe, next in the order, in the ranking, and looking at the end of 2024 at this point. The other partnerships that's very important is our hospitals, our local hospitals. And again, we'll talk a lot about that going forward in terms of working together, partnering, reducing offload delay, and the various partnerships we have there. This next slide, I won't go through the entire list, but really, I think what's important to note is paramedic services is growing in terms of its partnerships. You can see the whole list here. Some newer partners like Home and Community Care, Waypoint, Community Mental Health Center. So we are really building more and more partnerships as we continue to expand with the service delivery across this region. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Mills for the next slide.
I'm going to have to teach me how to use this first. Oh, I'm kidding. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jane. So I just wanted to quickly talk to you guys about the different classifications of paramedics we have. And I think it's really important to mention out of the gate, and Jane kind of alluded to it, is the Ambulance Act is changing, and ambulance personnel are now referred to as paramedics. And we are now focusing on, instead of grabbing people and going to the hospital, we're treating people in their homes. So we're the Ambulance Act is allowing us to have the ability to now treat people where they are and keep them in their homes, keep them healthier, keep them there longer. And we're getting the education, the skills, the abilities that we need to fully do complex medical assessments and run complex medical calls in people's homes or wherever it may be. So in saying that, this is just a quick glance at what our primary care paramedics go through. So they have 2 years of education, and then they have a provincial certification. They have annual recertification requirements. So our base hospital requires them to recertify annually. They have critical thinking skills and de-escalation techniques. They really are embedded in our referral process. So if they come into someone's home and they do a quick scan and they see, oh, this person needs, a lift bar. They know to go through the 211 process and start that path for them so that we can get them the aids that they need to not call the ambulance or to be healthier, to reduce falls. So we really train them well in that referral process. Trauma assessments, they have to be quick. They have to be very accurate so that they can get the definitive care they need quickly. Research participation, so we get presented with the opportunity provincially to participate in research. And if we have the capability, we do. So recently, we just spoke to you about the DOSE-VF
study. So those are some of the research participation that we'll have, and a bypass assessment. And when we talk about our hospitals, we have the ability in the field to identify like a heart attack. So if someone is needing a catheterization, so they can bypass, GBGH to go to RVH to go to the cath lab. Or if they're having a stroke, they can go to the regional stroke center. So we have that ability to assess in the field and get them to the care that they need that is definitive. So that's our primary cares. Our advanced cares are all of that, plus, another year of education, annual recertification, additional clinical time. And I'm talking like these medics are in ORs with anesthesiologists doing intubation. Like they have some very serious clinical time that's associated with their degree. They have the annual recertification, scene management, leadership training and development. So in order to run these calls in your home, they have to be able to analyze the scene, make sure it's safe, and completely take control of it and run those calls. It has really been pointed out to us in COVID, more so than any time else in our history of our career, that there is one group of people that can provide the sophisticated in-home care that our communities need, and it is paramedics, because we come to you. So they're training us to be that person to come to you and provide that care in your home. And we touched on it quickly at the front there. Incident response unit. So it's fondly referred to as our TAC team, but it's our all hazards team. And because Simcoe County is so vast, we have so many different like the highway systems. We have farming communities. We have so many unique needs that we needed a team that was specially trained to respond to those calls. So they respond to hazmat calls, CBRNE calls. They are police tactical support, so they are very embedded with our very police, and we're working on partnerships with OPP in South Simcoe. Remote access rescue, the forest that we have here. People get in the little nooks and crannies of the forest, and they break a leg or they break an arm. We have to be able to get to them. So we use our UTV. We have specialized equipment that can bump over logs and carry them out the 5 kilometers that they need to get back to the ambulance. Water rescue training, again, surrounded by it. So we have specialized training around how to operate on watercraft, how to do water rescue safely. Mass casualty incidents, again, our highway system creates a problem with big car pileups or explosions at our farms, or explosions from hazmat materials coming through. Chemical exposures and technical rescue. So these are all very specialized to this group of people, and they train endlessly, and they are always on duty, available to respond throughout the county. And then our community paramedicine, and I can't say enough about this portfolio. So again, it's ACPs and PCPs. They have an additional theory training specialized to community paramedicine. And really what this group of people is trying to do is bridge that gap, the identified gaps in healthcare, and really focus in on chronic disease management, assist people in their homes, keep them there safe, keep them there healthy, and identify the vulnerable populations. So what needs to happen to our frail populations, our elderly populations, our, mental health and addictions populations. So they really provide a plethora of specialized care to those populations. And we look at some of our numbers, our home visits in the past, since we started the program, we have 723 patients in our home visit program, 32 hybrid. And since 2021, we've done 1,401 vulnerable population assessments in our social housing and in our community, like the Busby Center community. I'm losing the word there. Shelters. So this program is just growing. It's absolutely the future of medicine in our communities. So these are some of the services that we are providing. So chronic disease management, so CHF, COPD, diabetes. These patients, when they go into hospital because of the chronic nature of their disease, they don't have a quick emergency room stay. They are admitted, they have lengthy stays, and this population of people, their morbidity and mortality increases exponentially every time they're admitted to hospital. So we really want to keep them in their homes, in their communities, and we have that ability to manage in this community paramedicine environment. home and phone visits, home safety scans. Is there trip hazards? Is there things that we can do to refer them to other programs to help them? Patient health education and public education events. That is so important for people to understand their health needs and what we can provide for them. And then those are just some of the skills that we do: urinalysis, blood work, vaccinations. So that group of people comes to your home and really focuses on home care for vulnerable populations. Additional programs we offer. So like I said earlier, we do participate in research studies. Our quality care program is partnering with our fire departments. We have 11 fire departments currently in the program. And what it does is it gives everyone a standard of care, and everyone, the fire departments and us, have the same base level of training when they come onto a call. So it helps communication, it helps move things smoothly, and it helps really build that primary care for the patients. Our PAD program, 750 units throughout the county. That's amazing. We've had 30 saves, public saves. And so they also do a public education awareness, and they work at the volunteer and community events. So you'll see them at maple syrup festivals. You'll see them at the smaller community events that we get invited to. Oh, sorry. And the special events team, just quickly, that team is put together. They have specialized training, and they work things like Boots and Hearts, Mariposa Folk Festival. They work there so that we don't have to take out of our regular operations to staff festivals that have influxes in population for that 1, 2, 3 days that they're here. So I'll just quickly get into the deployment overview. And when I talk about deployment, it's really important to point out that our deployment plan is, it does get reviewed with council, any major changes we make. However, when we present it to you, it does have the ability to move. Like, it's not something that's set in stone. We're constantly reevaluating it. We're constantly looking at the data, and the data is just a piece of the puzzle. And I'll just kind of walk you through that as we get towards the end of the presentation. So these are where our stations are located. And you'll see that we have stations and posts. And stations are typically where the ambulance lives. It books on there, our crews go there, they report there for the day. Posts are, in rural areas, a touchdown point for typically an RRU. So we have, let's say in our northwest, our Everett post books on at Alliston. So the RRU lives in Alliston, goes there in the morning, books on, and drives to Everett and stays there for the day. And there's a post there to touchdown. So that coverage in that area is for those rural areas. We talk about our south station, and we move into the hub and spoke model. And a hub and spoke model is a centralized book on location that all of the ambulances report to, and they book out to posts to maintain equal coverage. And those typically only work in really urban dense populations. You can't have a hub and spoke model in a rural area. It has to be more in an urban dense population. It's a cost savings measure. And what it does is it spreads, with these posts strategically placed, it spreads out the coverage. So they book on at the hub and they go out into the communities. So in Barrie, we have our Barrie North Post, Barrie Tiffin, and our Ross Street, and then our hub. And we have Alcona that books on in Stroud. So books on in Stroud, drives to Alcona for the day. And those are all ambulances. And then Tottenham is a post, again, rural community, books on in Beaton, and RRU drives out to Tottenham for the day. This is just a quick overview of our station locations. Everything that's encompassed in the blue is ours. You can see it drops York Region, and it drops Durham, and it drops Muskoka and Beausoleil. It shows where all the ambulances are all the stations provincially are located, but ours are all encompassed in the blue. And then I kind of focused in on the Barrie because they were layered on top of each other. And this is our hub and spoke model. So the top one is Barrie North, our Ross Street, our Tiffin, and our hub. And then the one beside our Tiffin station is our Bradford Street warehouse. So it just populates as an ambulance station. Our resources. So the resources that are available in the community. So our peak resources happen, they are typically our day shifts. They can go up till 2 o'clock in the morning, but it'll be a 2 to 2. So it starts at 2 in the afternoon, works till 2 in the morning. We call those peak shifts. So 34 ambulances, 8 RRUs, and at night we have 23 ambulances. And I'm just going to quickly talk to you about an ambulance and an RIU and the combination of both in a geographically massive region or county that like we have. You have to have a intertwining of both ambulances and RIUs based on the density of the calls, like the call volume in the urban areas, more urban areas, but also balancing the need for medical treatment in the more rural areas where it happens very few and far between, but they still need to have someone that gets there in a certain amount of time. So our ambulances staff 2 people. They are ACP staffed, PCP, IRU, or community paramedics, and the community paramedics rotate through to keep clinically sound when they do emergency calls. They can be redirected for first response. So if I'm transporting you with a broken arm and you're stable, and then someone in the vicinity has a cardiac arrest, they will actually stop our ambulance and they will have the paramedic in the back stay with the broken arm, and the driver will get out and attend to the cardiac arrest until another ambulance comes, because those cardiac arrest, things like that, are very time sensitive. You have to be on top of them. They all have transport capability. Rapid response units, again, they're targeted. So they have their zones that they stay in. We target them. They are more so in rural areas where we don't specifically have an ambulance there, because those ambulance, based on our resource depleting, will be pulled out of that area. So we put RRUs there so that at least there is medical access. However, an ambulance will be also dispatched to that. So we have 1 paramedic. It's non-transport capability. We have ACP, PCP, IRU, and CP hybrid. And they are, like I said, mobile in predefined zones. They do provide a targeted response, but they are always going to be assigned, as any ambulance, to the closest code 4. So that's an emergency response. So deployment plan considerations. So these are, and I've said it earlier, I can't stress enough, always under review. So we look at things, we look at how we build our deployment plan. We look at our response times, we look at our unit hour utilization, our geography, and our historical data. And those are our 4 big points that we look at. Our response times are based on provincially mandated response times plus ones that we set for ourselves. And I just want to give you a quick understanding of call priorities, and I'll let you just kind of read the definitions, but you will hear us probably talk in code 3, code 4, code 8, code 1s, and probably like, what are you talking about? So code 4 is our highest priority, so you have to, dispatch assigns it to you, you have to attend to it. Code 3s can be deferred. Code 2s are scheduled, code 1s are always deferrable, and code 8s is emergency coverage. So that's just a quick overview of it, just so you have an understanding if you hear us talking about it and you're not quite sure what's being said. So our response times based on the call priority is definitely something that the province measures and that we measure internally. Our unit hour utilization, so it's how many hours, so if our truck is 12 hours, how many of those hours is that truck being utilized? And that it's a fine balance. If you have a really high UHU, you're in risk of not being able to respond timely to calls. You're going to burn your staff out. It's a really dangerous game to play. When you have a really low UHU, you're not using your resources properly. There's ambulances sitting for days on end and not responding to calls. So you really want to make sure there's a fine balance. And the target across the province is between 35 and 45%. Now, when we look at that, we balance time on task. So how long are they on a call for? And that takes into consideration the complex medical needs. Do they have to put on PPE? What equipment do they have to put in? So the time on task is important. Offload delay, we've talked about that. How long are they spending at a hospital? The response time, so if they're coming from a greater distance, that plays into it. Our geography, so it can be as the crow flies, or it can be as by the roads, and it's really it can be really tricky to gain access to some of these places. Staffing, so as everyone is well aware, healthcare in general has gone through HHR challenges in the past couple of years. So staffing has been a problem for all areas of healthcare, including us. So staffing, ability to fully staff our ambulances also plays into our UHU. And coverage. So one of the things that historically in the province hasn't been taken into account is how many hours are these guys driving? Are they driving between stations to provide coverage? And are we counting that in their UHU? Seamless borders is very important to understand when we talk about how we respond to calls. So we are seamless, and ambulance service is seamless provincially. So it's provincially seamless as well as seamless within the county. So Barrie ambulances don't stay in Barrie. Alcona ambulances don't stay in Alcona. Based on our resource chart, our depleting resource chart, they move to where we can predict the next call is going to happen to the best of our ability. And provincially, the same applies. So if our ambulance is the closest to a code 4 in, I don't want to say Bracebridge, or somewhere across the border, we want to say Severn, north of Washego. If our ambulance is the closest to it, they will dispatch us to that. That's how the provincial border, seamless border works. So that's very important to understand when it comes to our resources. We do our best to manage it internally, but unfortunately, an emergency call is an emergency call. And then our depleting resource charts. So when we get down to certain levels of ambulances in the whole county, we have to understand how to manage them, and we have to be able to disperse them so that the most coverage is applied with the least amount of resources. So things start to shift. So we have, we base it on the probability of where the calls are based on historical data, and we slip it down into 3 levels: green, yellow, red, and red is 2 ambulances or less left in the entire county. So we build our resources based on that, and we strategically place our cars so that we can respond to the best of our abilities in those timeframes. And just to give you a quick insight is we traveled 3 million kilometers in that's not 2023, it should say 2022. We traveled 3 million kilometers in 2021, and in 2022, we traveled 4 million kilometers. So that's just the amount of kilometers our vehicles are putting on in a year for coverage, emergency responses, things like that. And then we just look at our average response times. So they do creep up over the years based on, again, like our population is growing. Our calls are getting more complex with our staffing needs. So we do see that growth. Now 2023 seems to go back down, but that's only this up until I think it's at the first quarter. So we do keep an eye on these trends. We do monitor it by each municipality, and we do try to make improvements based on what we're seeing in our call response times. And then this is just our response time performances. So our cardiac arrest and our CTAS-1, so our resuscitation, they're mandated by the province. We have to try and be there in 6 minutes or 8 minutes. We have to set up our resources, so we're looking to get there for that. Emergent, anything other than that, we have an influence on. We go by industry standard typically, and we do set our own targets for that. So we set a target, we do our best to get there, and then if we're not, we monitor it all the time, and if we're not, we're trying to understand what the problem is and how to fix that going forward. So that's just kind of a quick overview of deployment, our staff. I could sit and talk to you about it all day, but I think I'll get the hook at some point. And I'll turn it back over to Jan Sinclair.
Thanks very much. So this is the last slide, and this is just to provide an overview of the funding and our financial perspective for paramedic services. It's really fourfold. The primary source of funding is through the Ministry of Health. The dark colored graph on the left of the screen shows the history. So the province of Ontario has made a commitment to fund paramedic services across the province at a 50% rate. Their methodology is they look at the previous year's approved budget, so by county council. They used to provide an annual inflationary adjustment. They stopped doing that. So it's last year's budget, and they also include a factor for capital depreciation. So that's the main funding formula. You can see it certainly has improved over the last 20 years. However, we're always a little bit behind, looking at about 48% in 2022. And part of it is something that we've been advocating for quite a while to the province about that formula where it's a year behind. Now there's no inflationary adjustment, and so we're always seem to be playing catch up. So that's the main funding formula. We also have a couple of others. So through the Ministry of Health, we have what's called DAWN funding. So that's the offload nurse funding. We provided a report recently. We've received roughly around $132,000 annually since the inception with the county for the last, I'm going to say, 7 or 8 years. And we've been applying every year to expand that funding. We were really pleased that it increased up over $500,000 this past year in offload nurse funding. And we've started to look at applying it to a couple of hospitals. We talked about that with County Council. We've had recent discussions with the province. They've asked us to submit for the next fiscal year, which is they run April 1st to March 31st, and to put in our full ask. They've encouraged us to put in our full ask, which is approximately, the last time we did this was 1.3, and that would be looking at getting enough funding for all of our member hospitals across the region. So we're working hard with our finance team to resubmit, and we'll keep council posted on that. So that's the DAWN funding, or the offload nurse funding. There's also community paramedicine funding, and it's twofold as well. I'm going to say around 6 or 7 years ago, we received funding. It was through the LINS at the time, just under $300,000, and that was really the start of our community paramedicine program with the County of Simcoe. Chief Mills referenced the hybrid, and so that program, we built it so it would be sustainable. So our staff that respond to 911 medical emergencies also will provide community paramedicine. So we didn't staff over and above our staffing, but within some of our more rural areas where we have those rapid response units, when they're not responding to an emergency, they're providing community paramedicine. So that's just under $300,000. That's been maintained now. That's part of our base funding. And then more recently, we received $8.1 million in dedicated community paramedicine funding through the Ministry of Long-Term Care. And so we're coming up to the end of that in 2024. However, the province has announced they will be extending it out for another 3 years. So we're incredibly pleased with that. I think the roster is over 700 patients right now, and it's growing. We're getting referrals all the time, and that is across the entire county. So those are the 4 main funding programs. And the chart, we review this annually as part of our budget process. When I talked about way back when the paramedic services was uploaded to regional level, and we originally contracted the service out and then brought it in-house after the first 3-year period. We brought it in at that time to look for efficiencies, to look for standardization, and to look for increased quality assurance. And so we look very closely at our costing and try and balance with the needs, priorities, and ensure we maintain efficiency. So the chart on the right just gives you the most recent data that we've gleaned through our finance department in terms of where we sit provincially with other comparators. And that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? I'll start with Councillor Cox.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, when you talked about your rapid response, are they on the night shift too? Are they part of that lower number of ambulances out?
I don't think so. Sorry, just to clarify, the RRUs, are they on at night?
Yeah.
So as of right now, they are actually only peak shifts. So they work 9 to 9, 10 to 10, kind of based on the resources or based on the call volume in the area.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting to also is I'm thinking of the Washego ambulance station, and I know that it is not, there's nobody manned at night, right? It's only there for 8 hours or 12?
12.
12. And I do have some concerns from residents about response time, and I just wondered if those rapid responses were out there, because that would help ease the fact that I could say to them that we do have it, because it is the far north of the whole county, and they have had some issues with getting rapid response to them. So that was just my question, if it was something that we could look into, or is it something that might help that area ease the fact that they know that there is a fast response for them?
Sure, yeah, and we always are reevaluating, and I can take that away and bring it back to my team, and we can look at. I mean, we're always looking at our data. We're always looking at our numbers to make sure that our coverage is there for our entire county. And I think historically, why it would only be staffed 10 to 10 is we see that call volume just dip right down at night. So.
And I guess my concern probably would be for Romero would probably have the same issue at their northern border, their eastern. When you get further out on the borders in the rural areas, we do know that that's further for ambulances to go. And I know that there may not be a lot of calls, but there's always that one call.
Sure.
So anyway, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can take it away with my team, and we'll reevaluate.
Any other questions? Councillor Fryer.
Thank you, Warden Clark. And through General Manager St. Clair to Chief Mills, thank you for your service here and your staff's service to the community and this critically important service that we provide. I really appreciate the presentation, being a new counselor, finding out the in-depth aspects of the service. And congratulations on the performance. The operating costs significantly lower than the average. It does make you a little concerned because you talked about HR challenges, and we're all familiar with the fact that through the pandemic there was a lot of stress on your service. And I just wondered, from your perspective, a general assessment as to, do you see these things getting better for the staff? They've gone through an awful lot. So I just wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts on that.
So for our staff, and I have to tell you, I hope you can see how invested I am in this group. And our whole team is so invested in the health and well-being of our staff. We want our staff to be healthy. We want them to go home at the end of the night to their families. And we want to make sure that they're not broken when they go home, that they are mentally healthy and physically healthy, and that they retire from this job and have had a great long career. So we do work very hard to add resources so that they're not, as taxed. And I think it was Councillor Smith has said before that he never sees our ambulances in the station. They're always out in the communities. And we really do our best to understand that for our staff and balance our deployment. But that's just kind of the deployment piece of it. Like, we talk about the human factor of it. We work so hard to provide peer support and mental health supports. And, we're out in the communities looking for psychologists to help with debriefs. So something happens, we can have a psychologist come in real time and debrief with our staff so that they aren't broken. We do our best from a health and safety point of view to make sure that they have the appropriate equipment and lifting techniques so that they don't blow their backs out and their knees out. And we work on the trucks, the ergonomics of the trucks. We really work really hard to balance the health needs of our service and our staff, because they are, unfortunately, they're the bread and butter of it. They're how you get a service in your community. So we need to make sure that they go home every day, and we genuinely care about them, and we really want them to be the best versions of themselves, and we want to give them those tools. So we are always reevaluating. We're always, I think Jane can speak to it. We're always throwing stuff against the wall to see what'll stick. And we spend endless hours to make sure that the staff coming out on the other side of a pandemic that almost broke healthcare are slowly getting back up on their feet and dusting themselves off, and we're there supporting them along the way. So I think that was a long-winded answer to your short question.
Just to follow up, if I may.
Supplementary.
And thank you. And you shared about the fact that there's this ongoing support mechanism. I know that carries forward into our local municipal first responders. I know our fire chief has talked about the assistance by the county resources in that regard. And again, I'll express my appreciation from our community in that regards to the county and how we support our first responders. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Brian Smith.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the presenters, Jane and Sarah, an excellent job. Today, I would say grab a pillow, folks, because I could go on and on and on about paramedic services. When I look at everything we do here at the county, we do a lot of really important things. but I would argue every day, all day long, that this is one of the most important things we deal with, and that's paramedic services. This is the service that gets ourselves and our loved ones to the hospital and to the care that they need in the most dying times, if you will, no pun intended. And I have said it many times that, you know, I drive by paramedic stations quite often, and I'm always cognizant to look to see what's happening, and they're always empty. Very rarely are they not. And so when I look at the numbers we see today and the history that we have behind this, it's one of those services that I think we need to pay even more attention to, because we do have a shortage in paramedics. And what we know in the county of Simcoe for sure is that we need more paramedics. Our fire department in Wasaga Beach responds to anywhere between 1,200 and 1,500 calls or more on a monthly basis, and 95 to 97% of those calls are medical related. And what I hear on a regular basis from citizens in our community and outside our community is that when they need emergent services, the OPP are fairly quick to respond. Fire departments are always there in a quick and sufficient time, but paramedics are always usually lagging behind. And that tells me that that's a clear-cut case that we need to pay more attention to this, and we need to put more resources into this. Our fire departments cannot transport patients. So firefighters are sitting there dealing with patients, resuscitating patients, and then having to wait in that golden hour, if you will, for our paramedics to arrive, no fault of their own. I heard a story just 2 weeks ago from a paramedic who has literally, on many occasions, but on a couple of occasions, sat in the hospital offloading for 12 hours. That's a whole shift, and one ambulance is off the road. 7, 8 hours isn't uncommon. So, you know, I'm looking at the numbers today, and 4 million kilometers, over 3 million kilometers the year before. That's a 33% increase in travel, wear and tear, not on the vehicles so much as wear and tear on the paramedics who are sitting in those vehicles and providing the service that we required, saving lives in our communities every day. So I just want to commend our paramedic services. If you haven't been on one of the tours throughout the county and you get that opportunity, the highlight of the day is paramedic services. You get to see and meet the tactical team and see the amount of work and advanced training that they have in the county of Simcoe. So I commend them, and I implore this House to spend a little more time looking at how we're going to improve this vitally important service. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Good statements. Oh, lots of hands now. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Your Worship, to our presenters, General Manager St. Clair and Chief Mills. We always hear about paramedics and all of our emergency services, but until you actually have to have them, and we've had to multiple times of recent to my own family member, that you don't see, you hear, but we got to see the great work that your team does, and on different levels. Our response time was great, but also the empathy and just the great professionalism of your teams. And this is a very elderly patient that needed care and needed it right immediately. And we were just so thankful. And my husband, being in fire for 35 years, commented and was very, very thankful. So we know we have a great team. We know we have great leadership. And we do, as Councillor Smith said, that we do need to make sure that that you're covered in many areas that we can help with. So thank you again.
Okay.
If I may, just make a quick response. Thank you for these comments. In my tenure with paramedic services for 20 years, Councillor Fryer's comments about the pandemic, I've not observed the challenges that we've seen in paramedic services as well. As Chief Mills said, it impacted the entire healthcare system. And one of the other areas that Chief Mills and her team are leading is around a recruitment and retention program, because we've seen early retirements, we've seen people off with medical concerns, we've seen people that choose different career paths because of what's happened through the pandemic. So it certainly has impacted paramedic services, but they are working very hard, and we are seeing growth back in our services, and our team is starting to blossom again. Thank you.
Okay, I thought I saw more hands. Are we are good? Okay. Oh, there we are, Councillor Greenlaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, thank you very much. Great presentation. Thank you for the work that your department does. To follow up on Chair Cox's initial comment regarding post stations outside of the hours when they are operating, I know Oro-Medani, it either has to come from downtown Barrie or it's coming from Orillia, which is almost impossible, if not impossible, to meet the response time criteria. Would there be a chance of us getting data on that to understand how many calls outside of those and what thresholds we would maybe have to meet moving forward to bring them back down and provide the best service possible to our residents?
I'll start this, and Chief Mills may want to expand. We certainly can provide municipal specific data. And one other component that we didn't really touch on with today's presentation is the whole long-term facility planning program. And so some of the municipalities where we're seeing additional challenges, large geographies, smaller groups of populations, part of our facility plan is aimed to improve response times as well. So we certainly will bring back updates to County Council because that's an important part of the whole deployment plan. And the future plan that Council has approved will see response improvements in a number of areas such as Oro-Medani with the completion of the facility plan. So short answer is yes, we can provide you some data, but we will provide more details on the region-wide facilities plan because it does show improvements in a number of municipalities. And I'll look to Chief Mills to add any comments.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Warden. General Manager Sinclair and Chief, thank you very much for the presentation. Certainly echo the comments made by the House in terms of the efforts you've been making in this year and the past years. And from Tiny Township, we see the RRU quite a bit in Bomb Beach, and I've seen it done on location in many calls, and there's been a lot of positive reinforcement and feedback from that. The question I have relates to your $190 amount that shows up there. We have a lot of first responders on multiple branches that live in Wyvale, Elmville. A lot of people are commuting into the city and going to other regions. LaFontaine has a number. The comment I hear from a number of the people I talk about is that apparently paramedics are not paid the same amount throughout the province. And the paramedics are living in our regions and moving and working in other regions that pay more. I guess going back to my $190, it's great that we're low. It's awesome, and we're all happy to save money. But are we doing ourselves short service or shrift by paying less and having supply issues and seeing our residents who are employed as paramedics traveling to, frankly, a lot of them go to Toronto and work there? Are we handicapping ourselves for the future in terms of attracting talent?
Thank you for that question, through your worship. Through the pandemic, I think a number of services across the province weren't seeing regular adjustments, and there was, I think, variances, more significant variances in services across the province. I'm looking for our Director of HR who could comment further, but we just completed a collective agreement, a settlement. It was approved by Council. There was a separate market adjustment as well to ensure that we are, to your point, maintaining being competitive and making sure that our compensation is reflective of what's reasonable and fair across the entire province. So the recent settlement, I think we are very confident that our paramedics are being paid very competitively and have a good, very good compensation program.
Great. Thank you very much, General Manager.
Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. First off, let me say that having a friend who's gone through the paramedicine program, I do not have the intestinal fortitude to even get through the basic training, so I have the highest respect for the services you provide to the community. That being said, with the pandemic hopefully in a rearview mirror, what are we doing to recruit to get the numbers back up? How can we assist to get the information out to the people that truly do make a difference?
Just to clarify, are you asking how council can assist or how I can? It's all about information. So for us, we're working so hard on a recruitment and retention strategy and getting honestly back to the basics, getting out in front of people, talking to them, telling them why they want to be here, work for us. Funny that you mentioned there's a report coming up. It's on Paramedic Services Week, and we are going to be out. We're going to be in the community. We're going to be here with an open house. So it's the social media piece. It's for us, it's just actively getting out there, getting FaceTime, talking to people, but it's also creating an environment internally where our current staff can grow and can stay here and can stay healthy and happy and safe and all of those things, because that word of mouth from internal staff is more important than any FaceTime that I could do. Is they get out, they talk to their families, they talk to their counselors, they talk to their colleagues in other services, and they talk about Simcoe County being, a great place to work. I mean, we've just poached a few from different services in this recruitment, so it's good to know that people want to work here, and that's based on the environment we create and how the emphasis we're putting on our staff and their development and their futures and all of those things. So we're really doing our best to get back out there and really get out in front of people and spread the message. And it just comes down to, getting out on your feet and being there, being present. So, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the folks? No, if not, okay. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jane. What a great presentation. And well, we've been at it an hour and a half, folks. Why don't we take a break, get back here, please no later than 11:10. Judith, if you can make sure you can have us all back, and then we'll get on with our agenda. got a mouthful. Oh, there we go. You know, I just. All right. So then we are back, and I will turn it over to Chair Cox for Performance Management Museum.
On recommendation CCW 2023-094. I also think at this time I'd like to say that May is Museum Month, and I think everybody should go to their local museum and see all the what they have there. I think if you went down to the lobby, there's a really interesting wall with all the boxes with the shapes of our townships on it, so you can open it up and see what they have put in there as an artifact from your township. So the recommendation that item CCW 2023-094 dated May 9th, 2023 regarding the Simcoe County Museum Matthews Innovation and Transportation Gallery Expansion Project be received, and that staff report further with the conceptual details, plan phases, and timelines along with the detailed costing regarding the Matthews Innovation and Transportation Gallery Expansion Project, and that the revenue adjustments as generally outlined in subject item be approved. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Fryer. Any questions? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question, or I have a comment more than anything else, and I just want to talk about how you mentioned that museums it's Museum Month or whatever, and it's critical. It's cultural museum. It's actually critical for us to support this. But, you know, I looked at some of the numbers in here, and the value, $7.7 billion in Canada, spent twice as much as any other, 7.7 million visits. My issue is that we're talking about going back to looking at funding this instead of donations. And I wanted to make sure that this, when I went through the report and I looked at it, I wanted to make sure that families could afford to go to this. And when I look at the cultural museum, I look at the museum here in Simcoe County, we need to make sure that we get the younger generation of that museum. It's more about teaching the younger generation about what we have been there and done in the past. So I looked at the funding, and when I looked at it, for a family of 4 or 5, and I have my grandkids and my kids that go to it. For them, it would cost them over $30 just to get in the museum for a family of youth. I've got 3 grandkids. They're 4 and 7, and the parents. And I looked at that as $30 to get into it on a regular day. Special day, it's even more than that. So I wondered if there was a way that, and I know it's in the report, so I wondered if there's a way to reinvestigate the costing here to make sure that it's affordable for young families. We need to get the young families in there. Going there myself, I know most of the artifacts myself at my age, but I think it's more about the young families and can they afford to pay those numbers. I agree with the fact that we need to get out of the donation side of it into the funding portion of it, but I would like if the museum could look at those numbers again and make sure that we do either put a package for families together or whatever, you know, something like that, so families can come and enjoy it, because there is other costs when you're there. There's food and things like that for kids. So I just wondered if that was something that the museum people could look at and hopefully support.
Go ahead. Thank you, Mark.
And maybe I'll ask our museum curator, Kelly Swift-Jones, to speak to that. But it's certainly something that we've considered. As you recall, we did have a donation-style piece for a while. But maybe, Kelly, if you could expand on that. I know you have discussions with some of your counterparts.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, we do have a family membership that's $60 a year that would speak to the concern specifically related to repeat visitation, the cost per family. I do recognize it's a fairly high dollar value on the one hand for repeat visitation. We're also planning to continue specific days of admission by donation so that people who might not be able to come, you know, bring their whole family for $50 might want to come when it's an admission by donation day. We also are in early stages to talk about reciprocal memberships with other museums throughout Simcoe County. That would be something that we're looking at for 2024. And then we have in the past and can certainly look at again having memberships available through our local libraries so that people can book out a membership for the day and come to the museum.
I want to thank you very much for looking at all those avenues to make it affordable, because it is a great place to go visit with the young kids and everything else. So thank you very much for looking at that.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Back to
Thank you, Chair Cox, and now I'll go on to Chair Leduc for Human Services.
Thank you, Warden. We're at Section 6, Human Services, the consent agenda. 6.1, Paramedic Services Week, Diversity, Paramedicine, the Patient, the Provider, the Profession. And I think, mover second, put this on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Van Stavern and Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor Sandhu. And I would ask, I know that our General Manager, Jane Sinclair, put a great presentation on earlier, but if you could just speak to this one, if you don't mind, for a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're very excited about paramedic services coming out in Paramedic Services Week in 2 weeks. We have planned celebrations every day of the week. We will have displays set up here at the county when council is here for their session. And we will be excited to announce the winner of the Paramedic Services for a Day, Paramedic for a Day contest. We have a contest every year for grade 5 and grade 6 students, and it's always very exciting and very interesting to hear feedback from our youth about their vision of paramedic services and what it would be like to be a paramedic. So we're very excited about this week coming up and to share that with County Council.
Thank you very much, General Manager Sinclair. Okay, so no comments or questions. So I have that the following consent item having been given due consideration be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to Human Services, Section 7, Human Services Long-Term Care Committee of Management. So I have 7.1, Georgian Long-Term, CCW 2023-139, Georgian Manor Long-Term Care 16-bed expansion project update. We need a mover and a second for this, please. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Fryer. Question, concerns with this report? Another excellent report for us. Seeing none, so I will read the motion. That item, CCW 2023-139, dated May 9th, 2023, regarding Georgian Manor Long-Term Care 16-bed addition project update be received, and that staff continue with the Georgian Manor Long-Term Care capital expansion project as generally outlined in item CCW 2023-139. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I will, there is no other matters of consideration. There's no other matters, so I will turn it back to the Warden.
Okay, and if Chair Dolan would like to take on corporate services, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one item on the agenda this afternoon, item 9.1, which is CCW 2023-129, the County Road 21 and County Road 56 roundabout construction project update. Any questions or comments? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Through to General Manager Elliott. First of all, I would just like to say that this roundabout construction is very much needed. It is on one of our busiest roads, County Road 21 and County Road 56. We've had many fatalities, we've had many accidents, and we believe that this will help slow the traffic down, but it'll also help prevent those accidents. And I'd just like to also say thank you to staff for recognizing the need, and also to my colleagues in the House on behalf of ESSA Council staff and residents that you passed this in the budget. And we want to say also thank you that we are not closing 21, because this would be detrimental to our fire department, because that is one of the busiest roads. Closing 56 at times, or to, I guess it would be to the north, is not ideal, but it is livable. And we just like to make sure that any of those changes that would be communicated very tightly with our fire department, just so that it's in the CAD for the fire department, so they know when it's open and when it's closed, because you might have delays in some of the days and maybe open in others. So again, I just like to say thank you very much to staff for all that you've done to make this the best way to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Any other comments or questions? I just had one to Jim Elliott about also the businesses in the area, making sure there's open communications line to the businesses.
Thank you, Chair Dolan. We've already actually reached out to some of the businesses, and that would be part of our communications plan. Once we actually have the contractor on board with a detailed schedule, we'll re-engage the businesses to make sure that they're fully up to speed on all the activities in the area.
Thank you. So I have a motion moved by Councillor McDonald and seconded by Councillor Smith that Committee of the Whole, under the authority of Simcoe County Bylaw number 4952, grant the request outlined within item number CCW 2023-129 to temporarily close County Road 56 within the Township of ESSA as described. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And are there any other matters for consideration for corporate services today? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, and please explain to me what you've done with the corporate services agenda over the last few months. Okay, I'll go back to performance management and Chair Cox.
Thank you very much. We're on 11.1 CCW 2023-131 special meetings of County Council regarding strategic planning. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Evans. Would you move? Thank you. And a seconder, Deputy Warden Coughlin. The recommendation that Council deliberate and provide direction on the content to be included in the strategic planning sessions confirmed for June 13th and the 27th of 2023, and that the subject to deliberations in the affirmative, that the content and approach as generally outlined in the subject report be approved. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Performance management 12.1, other matters for consideration. Mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Mincing and seconded by Councillor Fowler. The recommendations contained within the Joint Accessible Advisory Committee report dated April 20th, 2023 be approved with exception of the Township of Springwater and the Township of Oro-Medani recommendations. Any comments? Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, back to the warden.
Okay, I've got two in-camera items. Is there anybody feel the need to go into camera to discuss these items? I'm not seeing any, so I'll go right to the motions then. The committee, don't need that one. Confidential item. CCW 2023-132. That direction in camera contained within confidential item CCW 2023-132 regarding a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by a municipality or local board be voted upon and approved in accordance with section 239(6)(b) of the Municipal Act as amended. Moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Laux. All in favor? That is carried. And secondly, the confidential item CCW 2023-136 regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, be received. Moved by Councillor Greenlaw, second by Councillor Evans. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And lastly, adjournment. That the May 9th, 2023 meeting of the Committee of the Whole be adjourned at 11:23. Moved by Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Fowler. All in favor? That is carried. Now, John, do you have details of how we're leaving here, or does anybody know? Mark, can you help us out?